إذا نحن على موعد الآن مع جلسة نقاش، وستناقش السنة الدولية للمصايد الحرفية وتربية الأحياء المائية ودور المملكة العربية السعودية وفي RECOFI و GFCM وأهداف التنمية المستدامة، وتوجيه انتباه العالم على دور صغار الصيادين ودور مزارعي الأسماك والعاملين في صيد الأسماك في تحقيق الأمن الغذائي والقضاء على الفقر والاستخدام المستدام للموارد الطبيعية. وسيلي ذلك فقرة الأسئلة والإجابات. يتفضل إلى المنصة كل من الدكتور أحمد المزروعي وليونيل دابادي وبيدرو غوميز. وسيدير هذه الجلسة مشكورا الدكتور يوسف الحافظ.
Small actions can have big impact, like a ripple effect. Small-scale fishing and aquaculture can bring food to one family and provides healthy nutrition to millions more. It brings value to all. Small-scale fishers and fish farmers also know what it means to preserve the balance in our ecosystem. But our livelihoods are at risk. Now more than ever, we need to be resilient, include us in decisions that affect us, and we will adapt and innovate with the changing tide. We may be small in scale, but our way of life will keep on making a difference and spread like ripples in the water.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. We will start this about, as you see in the film, that we concentrated in the small aquaculture and also small fisheries. So we have 6 issues. We try to start with the 3, and I will start with Ahmed Al Mazroui. What's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia contribution, collaboration and contribution in FAO and RECOFI and GFCM? Thank you.
شكرا دكتور. أنا برد باللغة العربية. طبعا دور المملكة دور فاعل وداعم للكثير من الجهود وأنشطة منظمة الأمم المتحدة للأغذية والزراعة الفاو. وانطلاقا طبعا من رؤية المملكة 2030 نحن نلاحظ الكثير من الجهود على المستوى الدولي والإقليمي فيما يخص طبعا الأسماك بشكل خاص. يعني حتى نكون أكثر بعطي مثال لدور المملكة في تعاونها. طبعا المملكة حاليا هي الرئيس الدوري للهيئة الإقليمية لمصايد الأسماك ريكوفي. أفضل قرار تم اتخاذه في الآونة الأخيرة هو تنظيم مصايد أسماك الكنعد في منطقة الهيئة الإقليمية لمصايد الأسماك. هذا القرار تم تبنيه في اجتماع مجموعة عمل مصايد الأسماك. الاجتماع تم تنظيمه في 2019 في سلطنة عمان، وكان الرئيس لمجموعة العمل هذه كان من المملكة العربية السعودية. تم التوصية بهذا القرار المهم جدا. طبعا المملكة كانت مع باقي أعضاء الحقيقة الفاعلين، وكان الاجتماع كما أشرت في مسقط، ها طبعا التوصية لا تتأتى إلا من خلال دور محوري وهام وعمل دؤوب مع الأمانة العامة للهيئة. أيضا من محاسن الصدف أنه تم اختيار المملكة في اجتماع الدورة العاشرة في روما لرئاسة الهيئة، وهناك تم اعتماد القرار بإغلاق الموسم بناء على التوصية العلمية. ومن ثم حقيقة بتعاون مثمر وتواصل مع المسؤولين في المملكة أمكن مع كثير من الجهود وتعاون الدول الأعضاء الحقيقة كما أشار الدكتور بارانج في أنه أحد القرارات التي تفتخر بها المنطقة تم اعتماد القرار وتم تطبيقه رغم كل الظروف التي واجهت المجتمع منطقة الخليج ومنطقة الهيئة الإقليمية في خلال عام 2020 وأيضا خلال عام 2020. طبعا دور محوري وأساسي، وفي طبعا نفس الشيء هناك تعاون مع الهيئة مصايد الأسماك في البحر الأبيض المتوسط GFCM. أعتقد الآن انضمت المملكة كعضو متعاون Cooperative Non-Contracting Parties يسموها طبيعة الانضمام في الاستزراع السمكي. تربية الأحياء المائية موضوع جدا مهم، والكثير من المشاريع التي تعول عليها رؤية المملكة 2030 هذا الجانب الحقيقة، وبالتالي أعتقد أنه دور فعال ملموس. ونحن نشاهد أيضا هذا المؤتمر العالمي والدول المشاركة فيه. وأما الجهود على مستوى العام في أنشطة الفاو فأشار لها زميلي بيدرو في عرض جميل الكثير من المشاريع والأعمال التعاون، وكذلك زميلي في المكتب الإقليمي دكتور ليونيل. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا. Lionel, I would like you just to give us brief of the international years of regional fisheries and aquaculture. IAFA.
Thank you very much. And thank you also very much for highlighting and presenting the video of the IAFA on the screen. So the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries Aquaculture was decided by the UN, and it was decreed that it would be 2022, and that throughout the year we are going to highlight the importance of fisheries and aquaculture. We know that aquaculture particularly has been a sector that has changed tremendously in the 20th century and 21st centuries. We cannot even imagine, or at least 20 years ago, we couldn't even imagine how aquaculture would be done today. But what we have seen a lot is the big industries, the big investors, the most updated technologies for producing aquaculture. This is important, of course, and because this is going to bring us to the future of how fish will be produced in the future. But we should not forget that today, still, the majority of the productions comes from the small villagers, small fish farmers, and that it is very important that all the progress of technologies should not hide the importance of this sector, because this sector is not just important because they are producing a lot of fish, because they are feeding us and they are feeding the world, but they are also providing a lot of benefits. First, with this small-scale aquaculture, we can provide livelihood. We can improve the health of the people in the remote areas because fish will be accessible locally with the production. Because it is also a way of fighting inequities. We know, for example, that gender is an important dimension that we try to promote in the approaches. Also providing a decent work for the people, so that to make sure that when they work, they get conditions of getting the right remuneration for the work that they are doing. So there are all those dimensions that we want to promote throughout the years, so that they can benefit also from having a more well-known status in the population. This, to some extent, the COVID has highlighted the impact of the importance of the small producers, because in many countries the people have decided to purchase locally instead of purchasing imported feeds. They were rather giving focus on the local production. It's the case also in the regions, because most of the time it has been shown that the people, they prefer to buy fish that has been produced in the country rather than fish that is imported from regions that we don't know. So all these conditions makes that it's very important to recognize these people, and that in addition to recognizing them, we give them support so that we can empower and we can contribute. They can contribute better to the future organizations. I think that's, I don't want to be too long, but that's just one of a few of the reasons why this YAFA is so important. What you could also add is that we have been talking about sustainable food systems. You know, there was a big conference last year, and when you consider food systems, it means that all the stakeholders should contribute to sustainability. And definitely, without the small-scale producers, we cannot have sustainable food systems.
Thank you. Pedro, I would like you just to give me a little bit about what the role of the small-scale fisheries and aquacultures producer in the food security. What's the relation between the produce of the small scale to the food security? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yousef. Well, the role of small-scale aquaculture and fisheries in food security is significant, is crucial, especially in the coastal areas. A huge percentage of the population of coastal areas depends of livelihoods and products, seafood products for the normal meal. The key point or the challenge with the small-scale fisheries and aquaculture to assure a food safety is to increase the quality of the product and the conservation. As you know, we can visit many landing sites, and there are some problems or some concerns to get a proper ice to do a proper conservation. Also, you visit some markets, and there are some protocols in handling the seafood that are not in a very proper, hygienic and way to do it. So it's a big challenge to work in the coastal communities with the small-scale fisheries and aquaculture, and to assure that minimal protocols of handling are in implementation, that there is easy access to ice, as we talked before in the presentation, fake ice, much better, and to assure a proper conservation and a proper quality. So that is going to be an increase of the health, an increase of the welfare of the country in general, but also the population of the coastal communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ahmed Al Mazroui, I would like to be focused on the role of small-scale aqua fisheries, especially why the global focus on the role of the small fisheries.
شكرا دكتور. صغار الصيادين كما أشارت يعني دكتور برانج بالأمس، يعني إنتاجهم يمثل 40% من الإنتاج العالمي. كما أشار أيضا أنا يكوتهم أنه هم صغار بالاسم، لكن الإنتاج والمساهمة كبيرة، ليس فقط الإنتاج ولكن أيضا في توفير فرص العمل، الحياة الكريمة للأسر. في دولنا كل أنشطة الصيد الحقيقة تعتبر أنشطة صيد حرفية. أنا طبعا أعتقد أنه جميع دول الخليج بما فيها طبعا سلطنة عمان يمكن اللي أكبر دولة يمكن في المصايد وغنية، 95% أو أكثر من الإنتاج يأتي من الصيد الحرفي، صغار الصيادين، وبالتالي بدون أدنى شك أنهم يستحقوا الرعاية. يظل قطاع كل خططنا ومشاريعنا الحقيقة لزيادة الإنتاج من الاستزراع السمكي، هذه خطط استراتيجية لا غنى عنها، ولكن كل البرامج الخطط يجب أن يعني كل دولة كل خططها وبرامجها تكون تواكب الظروف الاجتماعية والاقتصادية. إذن قطاع الصيد الحرفي، صغار الصيادين مهمين في المنظومة الغذائية، مهمين في توفير فرص العمل، مهمين في الإنتاج، بتغذية المنطقة كلها. طبعا هذا مع الأخذ بالاعتبار أنها أيضا حرفة صغار الصيادين وحرفة الصيد هي حرفة موروثة، هي تاريخية، هي ثقافة. ارتياد البحر لدول الخليج كان تاريخ طويل، كان امتداد وأفق واسع لدول المنطقة في خوض غمام البحر والاستفادة والتواصل الثقافي مع دول العالم. بالتالي صغار الصيادين هم يعني يمثلوا ركيزة مهمة من ركائز المجتمع في المنطقة. وأعتقد أنه في المملكة أيضا أنا ما أتيحت لي الفرصة لضيق الوقت. بعض الأنواع السمكية في البحر الأحمر مثلا الطرباني، أنا يعني معجب بهذه السمكة من تقريبا 10 سنوات، أتيحت لي الفرصة للاطلاع على أهميتها. هذه من نوع كثير من الأنواع السمكية موجودة في الطبيعة، وبالتالي حماية الموارد وحماية صغار الصيادين هذه ليست متعة، بل هي ضرورة للمحافظة على مواردنا ومحافظة أيضا على هذه الحرفة ومحافظة على ظروفهم. وكما أشرت أنهم الحقيقة يسهموا إسهام كبير على المستوى العالمي أو على مستوى منطقتنا، لأنه الصيد كله صغار صيادين في منطقة الخليج. شكرا.
شكرا أحمد. Lionel, we would like you to give just a brief about sustainable development goals.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. That's a very important question. The Sustainable Development Goals are part of what we call the Agenda 2030. It's the countries that have taken the lead on this and decided that they would like to set ambitious goals for the rest of the world to reach, let's say, a more livable world. We know that this world is facing a lot of issues with pollution, with hunger, with poverty, etc. And we also know that we are going to face new challenges with the climate change, for example, with the demographic growth, etc., etc. So the idea was really to set very ambitious targets. So you have they have set 16 goals plus one, which is on partnership, because none of the goals can be seen in isolation. All the goals are interconnected. And so it is, and I think that this interconnections of the goal is something that is very important. For example, the goals on eradicating hunger is of course connected to the goal SDG 14, which is on sustainable life below water. So all these goals are interconnected, and the idea is really to promote them. So these 16 plus 1, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, they are very general. And to make them more specific, the countries have identified targets. So I wouldn't like to say a mistake, but if I'm not wrong, there was 169 targets. For example, the Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is life below water, is divided into 7 targets. Plus, so these are very, very specific targets. For example, you have no more marine pollution, fighting acidification, fighting habitat destruction, etc. Fisheries management is one of the 14.4.1 is one of the most important. And for each of these targets, you have indicators that can be measured to see how the countries are progressing alongside each of the goals. In addition to these 7 goals that are target, we have also some transversal goals. One transversal goal is about small-scale holders. So again, there is one, we were talking about the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and of Aquaculture, but you also have one sustainable development target on small-scale farmers. You have also research and development, and it is very important because we were talking about the importance of research for aquaculture in our countries. There is one target in SDG 14, which is about the investment of the countries into oceanographic research. So that's really something that is important. The main problem that we have seen is that this Sustainable Development Goal and Agenda 2030 has permitted to the country to progress in the right directions, and we have seen a lot of improvement. But most likely, right now, if we continue the business as usual, we will not be able to meet the target. So we will fail on meeting the target. It is not completely negative because we have made progress, but still it is very important to realize that if we really want to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to double our efforts, and that's what we are going to try to do in the coming years with in FAO, try to raise awareness and try to help the countries comply with the objectives that they themselves have selected.
Okay, thank you. So, Pedro, we would like you just to the brevity and the relation to the sustainable use of natural resource. What's the relation?
Yes, in coastal area, the vulnerable people definitely depends of the livelihoods of fisheries and aquaculture. In some cases, or in most of the cases, they are working in the sector in a way to sustain the life and the families, subsistence way. But now we have new technologies, easy to use, that can facilitate much better and can increase the quality of the product that they use. In some cases, as they are not under the system and they work in a kind of subsistence way, they can have a very negative impact in the environment, not because the quantity is going to be reduced, but because maybe the target of that vulnerable people is focused in species that are in a sensible situation regarding the ecosystem, or also because they are working in sensitive habitats like corals or mangroves or of that. So the way to avoid this negative impact is to facilitate them to integrate them in the proper fisheries and aquaculture sector, providing them much better technologies, easy technologies, cheap technologies. The good thing now that we have most of the technologies new are free, so we can really easily integrate them and to provide them system to get much better quality, get much better conservation of the seafood, to get a much better price, and to be sure that they have enough amount of money to survive or to have a very proper life and the families of them. Yeah? So probably the use of new technology integrated then in the system should be the best way to reduce the negative impacts in the environment.
Thank you, Pedro. I think we have now just information which related to the small aquaculture and fisheries. But as you know, many now is working to encourage the small aquacultures and fisheries. And we really, those they are facing a lot of challenges. So I would like each of you just give us the challenges and what's the really solution to face these challenges. And I will divide this in 3 areas. One, Lionel will talk about aquaculture, small aquaculture challenges. And Pedro will talk about the fisheries. And Ahmed will talk from regionals and organizations, how they really working in this area. So I will start with Ahmed, just to emphasize, I mean, these organizations like others, FAO or others, how their plan really to face these challenges and to be really adapted in the country and also in the regions. Ahmed, floor for you.
شكرا دكتور. السؤال بحقيقة متعمق. طبعا الكثير من التحديات تواجهها صغار الصيادين، تواجهها صغار المنتجين، تحديات تتعلق على سبيل المثال باضمحلال مصايد الأسماك، الضغط الهائل على الموارد. زملائي يعني ربما يتطرقوا بشيء من التفصيل، لكن مثلا قضية الضغط على المصايد، بعض المصايد المهاجرة لا تتأتى إدارتها إلا من خلال منظومة وتعاون إقليمي، وبالتالي هذا الدور الهام للهيئات الإقليمية. كما أسلفت خير مثال هو الكينغفيش الكنعد، كان قصة نجاح إلى الآن الحمد لله أنه تبني مثل هذا القرار واعتماده، لأنه بإضمحلال هذا المورد أكيد أولاً بيأثر على الإنتاج، بيأثر على الأمن الغذائي، بيأثر على الصياد والعائد المادي، وبيأثر على الطبيعة، اختفاء نوع هام وغالي من الأنواع السمكية. أيضاً إدارته بشكل مستدام أنت تقدر توصل إلى الأحجام الاقتصادية. إذا ما صدته هو صغير، لو تركته سنة يعني العائد سيكون 10 أضعاف. بالتالي لا تتأتى في بعض الأنواع المهاجرة إلا من خلال منظومة إقليمية. جهود منظمة الفاو أعتقد أنه خير مثال هي مع المنظومة الدولية، السنة الدولية للمصايد الصغيرة ومربي وصغار مربين الاستزراع السمكي. هذه يعني منظومة كاملة تحتاج إلى دعم، وتحتاج إلى إدارة، وتحتاج إلى توفير الكثير من التسهيلات، تحتاج أيضاً ترابط الجميع وتعاون الصيادين، المستزرعين، المستثمرين، الإدارة، جميع الشركاء في أي قطاع وأي منظومة لابد من تعاونهم جميعاً. دور المنظمات الإقليمية ودور الهيئات الدولية أنها تساعد وتدعم الدول في تفعيل هذا النوع من التعاون وهذا النوع من المشاركة بين أصحاب العلاقة والشركاء في أي منظومة للوصول إلى استدامة الموارد، للوصول إلى أيضاً استدامة المربين أو صغار مربي الأسماك، توفير كافة التسهيلات لهم من خلال المنظومة. البانديميك أو الجائحة التي يعني حصلت والعالم كله كان يعني يواجه التحديات والانعكاسات هذه الجائحة، أوضحت جلياً كيف أهمية التعاون الدولي والتعاون الإقليمي لتقليل الآثار وإيجاد الحلول التي تساهم في استمرارية الحياة واستمرارية كل الجهود. أنا أعتقد أنه لا غنى عن التعاون الدولي حتى في الأسماك وفي صغار مربين في الذين ليست لهم علاقة على المستوى الإقليمي والدولي. الموارد اللي مستوطنة محلياً لابد من التعاون أيضاً الدولي والإقليمي، لأنك تحتاج أنت أحياناً تبادل الخبرات وتبادل المعارف. حتى في قضايا التسويق نحن لدينا منظومات عالمية تتتبع الإجراءات، تتبع أنه هذه الموارد كلها تم صيدها واستغلالها وفق النظم المستدامة لهذه الموارد. أنا أعتقد أنه دور كبير للمنظمات والتعاون الدولي في تفعيل والاهتمام وبذل المزيد لاستدامة صغار المربين وصغار الصيادين، وأيضاً استدامة الموارد والبيئة البحرية بشكل عام. شكراً.
شكراً أحمد. Learning about aquaculture.
Thank you. So aquaculture, that's a difficult question. And if I had the answer, I wish I could be very successful. But let's say maybe I think that the main challenge, speaking in particular of the regions and particularly my experience with the smaller fish farmers that I have seen in the region, I have the feeling that probably the first challenge is to get access to certified knowledge. Because aquaculture is about knowledge, it's about technology, it's about producing, but it is not just about knowledge. It is also about economics. It's not the same to have an aquarium and to make aquaculture. And sometimes the people, they don't have access to the informations, and they may be investing on their own and making some element and get a bad experience, and after that it will be difficult. So I would say that it's really important, I think, to propose technical models for the small and family farmers, to make sure that they will get a benefit from it. They have to, aquaculture is a very good activity that can bring you a lot of benefits in terms of what I described during my presentation, so in terms of economics, of course, but also in terms of environment, integration, etc. But it has to be done in the right way. If not done in the right way, the people will get deceived and will not continue, and worse, it will create a negative image for aquaculture. So I would like to, I think that's the first level. Have a kind of technological or technological economic package ready and adapted to the situation of the farmers. And when I say adapted to the situation of the farmers, that I mentioned this also very quickly in my presentation, is what I said, the opportunity cost. We have to look at what are the production factors that are cheap in this region, and what are the production factors that are expensive. Because aquaculture can be done in many ways. There is not one way of doing aquaculture. You can do aquaculture intensive, you can do aquaculture extensive, you can do aquaculture integrated, but it's not because it's working in Asia or it's working in America or it's working that it is going to work here. And similarly, what is working here will not necessarily work in Africa or work in other regions. So it's really important that to consider the opportunity cost, to consider the production factors, and to some extent develop a kind of entrepreneur mind of the small scale farmers. The next challenge I see would be very technical. If you don't have a fish seed, then you cannot have aquaculture. And having a fish seed can be a challenge when you are a small farmer in a remote area of the country, because how you simply don't know how you can develop this aquaculture. So definitely there is a need of having a wall, and I give the example of feeds, but it also applies to to feeds and other production inputs. So probably the enabling environment will be the next challenge. The people they need to be in an environment where they will get access to what they need for making aquaculture, and without this you cannot do that. And here I think that's where the government can really bring support for the people. And maybe the last one I would like to say is to give a fair price. So it's the market. Give a fair price to the producers. The people, they are making generally a high quality product, which is produced locally with a very low environmental cost and lot of environmental benefits. We want to encourage this. So we have to make sure that the people receive the right price for their product. And that means that maybe there is the need to work on developing local markets, developing value addition for the product. That's also something that is quite impressive in the CIMEC side on the exhibition, to see all the value addition that the people are doing on fish. And I think this should not be just for the big company. It should also this kind of marketing strategy, value addition, and fair price is also something that should be thought specifically for the smallholders.
Thank you. Pedro, can you elaborate on fisheries?
Yes, as we all know, capture fisheries have many stakeholders, fishers, sharks, sayedin, fisher cooperative, traders, people that is working with the transportation of the fish, working in the ice machines. So it's important, all are involved in a proper fisheries management and a proper development of a small-scale capture fisheries. So how can we integrate all that stakeholders? There are several ways. Through the data, for example, everybody involved in the collection of data, but also distribution of data should reach or should achieve all of them. Just not provide data, but also a feedback of that data and which are the analyses. So the proper information of the sector should be wide and open to all the stakeholders. So all together with that information, they can take the proper decisions. For sure, scientific analysis are key points for that decision-making process. Should be the basement of all of that. But also we have to take into account the socio-economic aspect of the sector. So the scientific recommendation can be a little bit flexible to adapt and to be in close coordination with the stakeholders. That not just in that fisheries management and collection of data, but also in the trading, and also to increase the quality of the products. All must be involved, all the stakeholders must be involved, because the quality of the product is not just in the market. Quality in the product starts when the fishermen take the fish or the seafood out of the water. Yeah? So in that moment start the proper quality and the proper conservation of the seafood. So the involvement of all of them is crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. I have another question which is related to value chain. I mean, if we put the small scale of fisheries and aquaculture across the value chain, which I mean the knowledge, technologies, capacity building, a market, all of these. So what do you feel the most essential, important to support the small fisheries and aquacultures? I mean, there is many examples here. We try even in Saudi Arabia, and some they said we support them to give them the money, some we give them the facilities. So I would like you, each of you, just to give in what's he feel, what's the most important and essential that from the value chain, crossing the value chains of the small fisheries and aquacultures, what's the most important we have to start with? We start with Ahmed.
Certainly the product. يعني بالأساس أنت تحتاج الموارد السمكية. I think I will say you. I think first of all we need the product. We need the fish. You have to start with the fish. That is the main one. So if you have the fish, then the rest will come. You can manage still. You can have some difficulties along the chain, but the fish, that's the main thing. So we start with the fish. If it is from the natural habitat, then you need sustainable management. You need these resources to be well under good management and fair utilization. If it is, for example, in the high seas, fair utilization means you respect the right of everybody as long as there is sustainability. And there is also, you consider the ambitious of the others to grow. Then if with the local, same thing, I think. Within the EEZ, you need to manage these resources well. That is the basic. Otherwise, if you don't have fish, then you will not see anything afterwards. And the same thing, you need the product, the fish, when you talk about aquaculture. So within these, when we talk about fish and fishing or producing fish from aquaculture, lots of activities are needed and lots of requirements are needed to promote that concept. I'll let Lionel to probably elaborate better in the part of aquaculture, and maybe my friend as well, Pedro, will elaborate better on how we promote the fishermen to use the sustainable and the easier way to catch fish, and in the sustainable way, make their life more convenient, safe, but also productive, without missing that the main objective is to sustain and sustain the resources for now and for next generation. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed.
For me, definitely in line with what I said, I would say the knowledge. You need to give the knowledge to the people, and then you trust them. They will find what is needed, and they will tell you, I need this, I need that. But definitely, I think the knowledge is, and it comes maybe with capacity building, is definitely the entry point. I think the first thing to focus. Give the right informations to the people, and the people will make very, very good things. But in addition to what Ahmed just mentioned about fish, I would like to quote our Director General, Dr. Kudonju, who said, whenever you have fish, you have happiness.
Yes. True.
Pedro.
Yes, I think my colleagues and friends explained so much, so I would like not to be so long. But for me, there are three key points. First is ice of easy access to ice in a not free, but cheap way, from the pond or from the sea in the nets to the plate of the consumer. Proper protocols of handling the seafood, handling in the markets, in the ocean halls, or in the aquaculture productions. And the first one is that this is a challenge that I put in the table, is establishing a digital auction and commercialization of seafood in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that the digital system should be really a challenge, but should be probably a good tool to improve the value chain system. Thank you.
Thank you. I will have the last question, which is related to standard and regulations. How you feel that really is it encourage the small fisheries and aquacultures, or do you think this is some of the challenges they have to face? So I will start with Ahmed.
What do you mean?
I mean the requirement, you know, in different way. I mean the standards, the quality, biosecurity, regulations, all of these, how the small fishermen and the aquacultures dealing with this, and is this really supporting, or this is a challenge for the small scale?
It is both. It is both, but at the end, these are very useful and important. You need to have these measures, because if you don't have these measures, you don't have regulation, you will not have effective, productive, sustainable fisheries. So it is important. You have to have these. There are challenges, yes, but the final outcomes is it's important, and I think although it is challenging, but it's still that is so important, and we have no option. We have to comply with these limitation, regulation. Otherwise, if it is only open access for fisheries without any limitation in the fisheries, I think that is the outcomes will be very negative. And yes, although it is challenges, but it is important and needed. Thank you.
Lon.
Yes, thank you. So that's a very important question again. I've been working on this when I was before FAO as a scientist, and I would say it can be both, but it's very good to highlight that it can be, it should be beneficial, but it can be dangerous, and it can even exclude the small orders from the traditional markets. First of all, I think I would like to differentiate the regulations from the certifications and the standard. The regulations should be based on creating a fair rules for all the operators to avoid conflicts, avoid any issue, avoid destruction of the environment, avoid social issues, etc. So I would say that the regulations is something that is imposed to everybody, and it should be, when at the time the people developing the regulations work, they should be looking at not putting the standards too high, but at creating an environment where all the operators can freely can work in security, achieve their objectives, but at the same time that no one is harmed by their activities. So that's for the regulation. When it comes to the standard, most of the time, the standards have been driven by the markets. And the demands of the market sometimes are not really considering the specificities of the producers, especially when it's in countries that are far from the markets. I've been working, for example, on the European standard for food safety, and I remember that because those European standards were very high level, because the European Union wanted to have a very high level of food safety in the products delivered to the country, it came out to the consequence that the majority of the producers have been excluded from the market because they were too small, simply too small for being able to ensure the traceability. So what is good is that at the time the European Union was aware of this and promoted assistance and once again promoted capacity building, and they implemented a system that ultimately, although at the beginning of the process 90 or 95% of the small producers have been excluded from the export value chain, after some years the situation improved and all the people were working. But in that case, it's very important that the people who are promoting the standards are aware of the difficulties of the small operators and make some kind of support to allow them to comply. Otherwise, it can, yes, as you said, it can be just an exclusion of the small producers.
Thank you. Pedro, do you have?
Yes, I would like to provide two comments. One in the, let's say, under local or national framework, to be sure that the regulations are followed is really important, the involvement of all the stakeholders we talked before. So it's very difficult when you establish a regulation and say you have to do it. Yeah? So it's much better through these national commissions or national group or workshop to put all together, discuss the regulation once that everybody agreed, so it's much easier the implementation of that regulation. But under the regional framework, I would like to say that the international standards sometimes are very general, and it's difficult to adopt in specific regions because each region has its own specificities. Yeah? So especially the region that we are talking about, some of the international regulations are difficult to adopt. So it should be really interesting that through these regional fisheries and aquaculture centers that we are discussing and that we are proposing and encouraging, should be good to use that tools to establish a regional standards and regulation, regional standards in aquaculture, in good aquaculture practice and fisheries management, to be implementing in an adapted way to the situation of the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro and Lionel and Ahmed, for participating in this very good discussions. Thank you for that.
Thank you to you, shukran.
Thank you for the guidance.
شكرا جزيلا لكم.